and welcome to today's session for Cloud Native Live. I'm your host, Taylor Thomas. I'm a CNCF ambassador and am really excited to host today. If this is your first time to a Cloud Native Live or watching one, this is where we get into the guts of all the various Cloud Native projects that are out there with the experts, the people who are using it and operating it in all the different cases. So this is a CNCF, so it is governed by the CNCF Code of Conduct, which basically boils down to be nice to each other. Do not make any disparaging comments or anything in the thread. We are here to answer your questions. Feel free to drop comments. We'll be monitoring those threads and we'll address any questions people may have. So today we have two speakers, one who will be joining us in a little bit. But first one, I'll let her introduce herself, is Courtney.
Hello, Cloud Native community. My name is Courtney Nickerson. I am head of community for the Kyverno project, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Apart from being head of community for the Kyverno project, I am also employed by Nirmata, the creators of Kyverno, and I am a CNCF ambassador. I help organize various KCD events. I'll be speaking at the upcoming KubeCon Cloud Native Con in Amsterdam, which I'm very excited about. And we also have a KyvernoCon in-person co-located event going on. So if you're going to be in Amsterdam, please join us. If you're not going to be in Amsterdam, we have a KyvernoCon virtual event that CNCF hosts for us as an incubating project. So that will be coming up soon. And one more thing to give a shout out while we wait on my co-speaker Saeem is that the TOC has just pushed our PR for graduation into a open comment mode, and hopefully we'll have a vote on graduation soon. So many things going on in the Kyverno space. If you don't know what policy as code is, you're in the right place today, because you will want to know. This is a big project, a growing community, and you can do tons of things with our technology. So very excited to be here.
Awesome. And that is great news about the graduated. For those who haven't done these kind of levelings in the CNCF before, it's a big deal when you get here. I did it a long time ago with Helm. I did it with Wasm Cloud to incubating. It's a big lift. So congratulations on that. It'll be really cool to get through that vote and that public comment period. So
thank you so much. We are anxiously awaiting. This is one of those moments where it's like you're always hoping to hear from your community and for public comments, but right now it's like, oh my gosh, can we just get through this? So I'm very excited.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and pull up our slides for today and let you get on with your what you have to present today. Sorry, trouble speaking obviously today. So let's go ahead and pull that up. And like I said, if anyone in the audience has any questions, we will be monitoring those and we'll bring them up as we can. So Courtney, I'll let you speak here and I'll ask any questions as well that I have on the way.
Great. So I was supposed to have a co-speaker today, fellow CNCF ambassador Saeem Safdar. He's also a platform engineering expert. So hopefully he'll be signing on soon so that we can have a bit of back and forth around policy as code in the platform space. But until then, let's go ahead and kick off with just the very basics of what is policy as code, because as always, there are probably some of you out there listening to this who are quite expert in policy as code and Kyverno end usage, but others of you might be just getting started with policy as code. So in very, very, very simple terms, policy as code means that you're going to be defining rules for how your systems should be behaving using code so that they can be automatically enforced by your software instead of manually checked all the time by people. So it's a pretty straightforward. They're just rules and guardrails in the form of code so that you can manage and enforce different aspects of your software and your Kubernetes deployments. So some key features of policy as code you can see here on the slide. Policy as code generally is going to be written in a declarative rule definition. So that means most of the time it's going to be written in YAML and CEL. There are other projects on the CNCF landscape like OPA that use Rego, still a declarative rule definition format. These are human readable formats, very important. It makes policies accessible for your developers and your ops team. So bridges the gap between those two siloed groups that don't always want to talk to each other. And policies oftentimes become common language for getting things done. It's also super friendly for version control. So teams that are using GitOps practices love using policy as code, and teams that are getting started with versioning control oftentimes find policies help them do that. You can store, review, and version your policies. There's also automated enforcement, so that makes it easier to deploy policies across all of your different environments. And then consistency and auditability become a lot easier to achieve reproducible compliance as you're moving forward and scaling things out. And now I see my lovely co-speaker Saeem has joined us. Hello, Mr. Safdar. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you very much, Courtney. Thank you very much. And I think policy is, as you know, policy is one of my favorite topic every time. I think it's very crucial for telling people how good at you adopting the cloud native ecosystem in itself. I've been always been very vocal about that policy as code, and I think Kyverno is make it a lot the simpler for a lot of the communities, a lot of the organization as well. So I think it started my journey back into the I started the policy as code in 2021, starting my first company. And one of the option, as you mentioned, I think one of the core front of this evolution is what is like we have so much developers in our backyard. Everything have their own setting. We do not the declarative language in our chain. We always mess up with the imperative command line, and then imperative command line is kind of a convoluted. And one of the advantage is for
Has he frozen for just me, Taylor? Is he frozen?
YAML-based manifest
he's back.
is not a new things to learn. So one of the advantage you can have automated enforcement and consistent auditability as well. So I think uh, one of the common front I think I see in the ecosystem is that whenever you work in the Kubernetes in any sort of infrastructure requirement, I think first you need to balance out like what of the infrastructure requirement, one of the app requirement as well, and you need a one set of primarily language that actually sync between both of radars like infrastructure and app environment as well. So I think for as Courtney is one of the he spent most of the time there as well, but I'm sitting outside helping see how organization is kind of adopting these days policy as code and Kyverno as well. So I think for me, as mentioning, it's a declarative rule definition, even though I think today's landscape is evolving. We have Cell, we have OPA, we have Kubewarden, we have Kyverno. And I think for me, I think every language has their own benefit, is has own powerful tooling to do this. But I love the ecosystem of the Kyverno in itself. One is it's been you don't it's a very slow learning curve as I already speak with. And number two is I think it's kind of the structure is already I know like what how is actually in Kubernetes we don't need to do anything. But as of now, I think Kyverno and other policies can sit on outside of the Kubernetes landscape, and we can actually add the more service gap is there. And one other things as we like about is a version control and those library are shareable across the organization and within the individual as well. So I think that is a very neat feature of the Kyverno. And also I think it's forces us to have automated enforcements. I think that's the one I really like about, because I think one of the example I can give all the time in the ecosystem is like back in the day when we work in the administration of the Kubernetes cluster, whenever we spin up a new cluster, there's a new label associated with it. And we troubleshoot what's happening, why our node is actually do not, how with it. So associated with Kyverno policies at the infrastructure level, policies at the app level as well, and that's I really like about, and it's a question that you can add. You can go with the next slide.
Yeah, let's move on to the next slide because I'm really excited to also hear. Saeem is our resident platform engineering guru. And so it's, as everyone knows, platform engineering is quite the topic. I think if AI hadn't come on the scene, we'd all only be talking about platform engineering. We'll look at this a little bit from the viewpoint of platform engineers specifically, is why does policy as code even matter? And there are a lot of reasons that policy as code can matter depending on who you are and what your role is. But tools like Kyverno, which is what we're talking about today, bring a totally different approach for platform engineers into their policies. Because first, they allow teams to actually standardize things at scale. And that is not something that's very easy to do, to be able to standardize everything that's going on in a repeatable way at scale. So a lot of platform teams we see are deploying workloads across different clusters and environments without automation to maintain that consistency, specifically through policy as code. It can get really hairy and difficult to manage. So policies really do allow platform teams to define and share standards for their configurations, for their security, for their operations, for their costs and expenses, for just about anything and everything that they're doing. They can use them in development, staging, production, which makes it a lot easier to control everything that's going on. Also, providing a safe developer self-service experience is really, really important for most platform teams. It is one of the prime goals that they have, is to provide a safe developer self-service experience. And having that as a core goal is a lot easier to attain when you have automated guardrails through policy as code, because those guardrails then define things for developers, make it a lot easier for them to know what they can and can't do, and it gives them a lot more freedom. Actually, we always hear this, we hear it over and over again, guardrails, not gates. But the reality is that it really does. When people know what they can and can't do, they know what rules they're playing by, it provides them a lot of freedom to be able to build, knowing where the boundaries are. Another reason, and we hear about this all the time, and it's probably my favorite of all, is that you eliminate bottlenecks in the review process. So lots of organizations today, between security, platform teams, your dev team, there's so many different review processes for your deployments, your configurations. And if you have policy as code to run some of those checks and automate them for you, you can actually alleviate a lot of those bottlenecks in the review process. And we hear this consistently from our end users, that one of the biggest advantages once they get over the learning curve of figuring out where they want their policies to sit is specifically that being able to automatically validate their configurations before they reach production. Really opens things up for them to then focus on other things, because they're using policies for guardrails. And then obviously governance, which is not something that sounds super exciting, but in the age of AI, it is and will continue to become more and more and more important. And right now, the tendency of what we're hearing is hearing people saying, how do I govern my AI agents? How do I govern my AI fleets? Policy as code can be used for all of that as well. And I think we're going to see a lot more coming in that space as people continue to use AI across platform teams. What do the two of you think, especially about the governance for AI fleets? Because this is something, obviously 3 or 4 months ago, we'd hear some people and I was like, wow, they're really a thought leader. But now it's everywhere. So what do the two of you think about that? You can go
Yes,
first.
absolutely, totally agree.
Yeah, this is one of those interesting problems in the CNCF space. I think a lot of people are interested in. we're still at the and as fast as AI is going, most people are still very much in terms of like companies at the beginning of how they're doing it. But what I think we've all noticed is we need multiple gates. And so having something like a policy engine as one of those gates, right? Like there's gates that should fire when we're writing code and committing. There's things that should fire even when the AI might be writing code or analyzing something and keep going up. And so this is like one of those gates that makes sure that it didn't do something dumb against policy or some other thing that is basically in conflict with your security posture. And so I think that that's really important as things continue to grow in the AI space. Like it was important before, and it became more important now because basically a third party system is making changes to our systems and our code.
Yeah. So from there, we enter into the Kyverno space. Kyverno, your policy engine, and yes, I did use AI for this image to create an engine. But how do we actually implement policy as code in your Kubernetes setup is really where Kyverno is going to come in. It is a Kubernetes native policy engine. And it was designed originally for specific Kubernetes environments. So if you are a Kubernetes user, this is probably the easiest way to get started with policy as code because it was initially designed for this. Now, over time, we have gotten to a point where we can handle any type of payload that you have out there. But this really was purpose built for Kubernetes when it started, and that it really is it shines exponentially well there. It really policies are defined as Kubernetes resources in the case of Kyverno. So they're managed using the exact same tools that teams are already using, like kubectl and GitOps workflows. You can use your CLI to set them up. It's super straightforward. It also supports multi-stage execution, so policies can run during admission control when resources are created. It can run in the background scans, can detect drift from your resources. It can run your CI/CD pipelines. It runs alongside your infrastructure as code workflows. So that's another reason that a lot of folks in the CNCF and our end users have chosen Kyverno because it does integrate so well into all those different components of Kubernetes in a very clear, straightforward way for our end users. And then it has very familiar syntax. And Kyverno has always been known for doing policies in declarative YAML. If you didn't love YAML, they loved it for you. They've always done policies in YAML. But Kubernetes announced that they were going to be adopting CEL. So Common Expression Language came onto the scene. We saw a big adoption there of Common Expression Language in Kubernetes. And so in order to align our project with the future of Kubernetes, we are also now adopting CEL policy. And for some of you out there listening, this might be a very big announcement. If you didn't hear it the first time we gave it, we will be deprecating our traditional cluster policies as we move into the new era of Common Expression Language policies. And we'll talk about those a little bit later on and why we've made this decision and what the advantages truly are for you, because there are huge advantages to adopting CEL policies. But this is a big news for everyone out there that might be an old school Kyverno lover. We will be deprecating our traditional YAML cluster policies later this year and moving everything into CEL policies. But stay tuned on this live stream because we're going to talk about those and how powerful they are, because you can do so much more. Shockingly, you could already do a lot, but now you'll be able to do even more with our new policy types. But that's kind of Kyverno in a nutshell, and I'm excited to talk about our new policy types and also to get feedback from the two of you about them and whoever's listening, because it is a big change for our community.
Yes,
quickly. Yes, I am. Go for it, because I know you're opinionated about this change.
Yes, absolutely. I think this is a very, very vital change as well, because I think as when Kyverno started, it's added this note that policies has to be simpler in writing the policy to be a simpler format. Understanding the policies also be the similar, and executing the policy to be a very simplistic way. So that's a Kyverno actually bring in the model. Now the Kubernetes community, the cell. So I would definitely encourage the Kyverno community effort to move format as well, because cell can expand more of the use cases. That is, I think, sometimes missing, and YAML can be sometimes convoluted. Some people like the format of the YAML, and some people always blame about the YAML as well. So moving to the cell, I think it's a very neat, a neat direction, and I would look forward to see like what other people have their opinion around that as well.
Yeah, the people are definitely opinionated about it. And they were when Kubernetes adopted Common Expression Language also. But again, humanly readable and common. hopefully, hopefully it is actually making things easier and more powerful for people. Taylor, have you done much with Common Expression Language?
I actually haven't done much with Cell at all, but I do know that like I'm of the opinion that the more the merrier when it comes to these things. Like obviously we can have too many knobs. I think we've all run into that in the Kubernetes space as well sometimes with when we're configuring things, but like having more options to make it easier, because I mean I personally would look forward to not having to worry that I indented something too many spaces or at the wrong place when I was yeah,
right?
when I especially with something like a policy. And
Yeah.
so like that's one of those things that I'm excited for, these new things that are being done. It's just always good to see like the evolution. It means that we're staying on top of things. And so YAML and Cell can live together. They just are different ways of approaching a problem that have different trade-offs. So I like that people are going that way, and I think it's a good thing for the Kyverno project because it really matches up with what Kyverno does.
Yeah, and where things are headed, I think. It's exciting. We'll talk about our new policy types in just a minute. For anyone that isn't familiar with our architecture, we have an entire diagram on our sitting in our repo, and a very, very, very long description of how our architecture actually works. But a quick overview: at its core, Kyverno runs as a Kubernetes admission controller. So that means that it's going to intercept API requests whenever a resource is created, updated, or deleted, and before the resource is persisted. Kyverno has the opportunity to evaluate it against your active policies and then tell you if something's up to policy or if it's not. That's basically how Kyverno works. Requests are then going to be passed through the policy engine. This is where the policy is going to run its logic. The engine evaluates those rules, applies different actions depending on the actual policy type at this stage, and then so it might validate your resource or mutate it or add a default or generate a supporting resource or verify container image or delete something that's stale. It will do whatever it is that you've defined that policy to do at the time of admission. And then beyond admission control, Kyverno also uses background controllers. So those are controllers that are going to continuously scan your cluster, detect drift, generate reports, perform cleanup operations, all of those different things to help you manage your policies and policy exceptions along the way. So it really does help you go throughout that whole life cycle management of your cluster and your different policies. And we do have a policy reporter tied into all of that because there are so many things and reports that you need. There's actually a new project that we've been teaming up with other open source policy providers to create called Open Reports. So not sandboxed yet, but it is out there. We've got people starting to contribute. There's a Slack channel on the CNCF Slack called Open Reports. That project actually originated from the policy working group that existed a couple of years ago. So if you are looking to better your reporting systems around your policies, please jump into the Open Reports Slack channel. Give Open Reports a try. There's a website as well. It gives you some information. You can contribute to the repo. And we will be moving our Kyverno policy reporter and putting it into the Open Reports project, along with a lot of other policy engines along the way, so that everyone has a very standardized policy reporting system that they can use. So very excited about that on the community side of things, to be collaborating with other projects as well, because we just want you using policies. It's really important. It will make your life easier. We hope that Kyverno is the one that does make your life easier, but if you're using something else, we want you to be able to get the information and the reporting and the different things that you need. And there you can see our lovely architecture diagram. It's great.
Yes, I pulled that up. We all like our beautiful mind style, crazy diagrams of our things. I always joke about that when I put one up too. So,
oh man, like, but also in a very similar way as people complain about the landscape, the CNCF being difficult to navigate, and architecture diagrams like that being somewhat difficult. And when you try to make them simpler, they almost get worse.
yep.
It's like a whole nother thing. So this is a part where I hope you jump in a bit, Saeem, because you do talk to and deliver a lot of platform solutions for people, but critical problems and challenges that platform teams face and that they use policy as code to help them solve are policy gaps. So 73% of your production incidents are directly linked to misconfigurations. That is a percentage coming from a CNCF report. So this is, 73% due to misconfigurations is absolutely crazy. And policy as code can help you fix a huge percentage of those very quickly. Also, the manual review bottleneck, 47 manual security reviews per week is what most teams average. Having to do manually, that's crazy for a platform team to have to be tasked with that, when you can do a lot of that by automating it through policy as code. And then there's a lot of just common security failures that happen. And so privileged containers running in production, because there's so many different things to manage in production that you don't realize that it's going on. Unsigned or untrusted images, which is very common, and we've created a whole specific policy type to help people verify their image as well as their image libraries. Missing compliance labels, metadata labels, naming conventions. I didn't actually list that here, but naming conventions don't seem like a big deal when you first start off and have one cluster. Naming conventions become a whole nother deal when you have scaled and you didn't actually establish them. And policy as code can help you make all of that make sense, because a lot of times it becomes chaos as things have scaled out. So all of those types of things are issues that a lot of times platform teams are having to manage and deal with at scale across different teams, and policy as code kind of helps pull all of that in and make things a lot more manageable. I don't know if we lost Saeem again. He might want to weigh in on those things at some point whenever he comes back. But why do policy as code matter for platform engineers? The reality is that most incidents in Kubernetes are actually caused by policy gaps. So again, the 73% of production incidents, the number of different types of manual reviews that the teams have to do, it's very much like letting a car with a loose wheel onto a racetrack. It's just a matter of time before something fails or the wheel falls off. And so policies really do help you automate all of those different things along the way.
Yeah, That's one of those key things with platform engineers. I know from experience working with a lot of them, doing a little bit of my own as well. It's just that having that you have so many things coming through, and you don't want to have to babysit everything. And so having policies gets rid of that burden.
Yes. And then the whole idea of consistent standards, especially when you're dealing with different teams, we do hear a lot of people that that is what they really enjoy about using policies. And as odd as that sounds, there are people who are like, I enjoy writing policies because, and a lot of times the because has to do with the fact that they are being more capable of providing consistent standards for the teams that they're servicing, right? And so that's one that we hear a lot of times, especially if they're servicing dozens of teams and clusters. Being able to have a consistent standardized way of servicing everyone is super helpful for them, and betters their developer self-service, and oftentimes allows their platforms to be adopted more easily, actually, because people know it's expected from them, and how to use and leverage the different tools and environments that they're being given to use. So that's also a very big one for platform teams, and policy as code kind of solves that.
Yeah, I think that developer self-service, in my experience, is what's really mattered, because we think of the word policy, and all of us who've worked at any big corporation kind of go, ooh, like just twinge a little bit, because we're like, oh no. But in this case, when it actually doesn't surprise me too much when someone says I actually like writing these things, because there's something that we're writing to help ourselves. It's just like using tools for tools inside of your like normal development workflow. So it's really nice to have that. So let's see if Saeem gets back in here and maybe can add some more flavor, but
add some more flavor to it. Now, the developer self-service aspect, and getting platforms adopted is inevitably, I think, the point that a lot of platform teams are at, is they struggle with getting their platform adopted because the self-service becomes difficult, right? It's a catch-22. And so policies really do help people kind of do that and deliver that experience in a much more efficient way. Saeem, you're back. We're talking about issues and problems that policy as code solves for platform engineering teams.
Yes, absolutely. That's one of our favorite topic.
Yes, we have done a handful of live streams and podcasts. Oh, he's gone again. That's okay. We'll catch up at whenever he comes back. We've done a handful of podcasts about that particular topic. So let's move on to the next one while we wait for him. And we're going to be talking about cell policies, I think. So this is the big announcement a few minutes ago. Kyverno is moving to cell. Why are we doing this? Before cell, common expression language, Kyverno wrote all of its policies in YAML patterns. YAML patterns are great. They're simple. They're super easy for people to use. They're very straightforward. You just want logic and conditions and loops and context, and that's it. But we have swapped all of that out for common expression language, because it really does amplify everything you have going on. So cell brings in the modern power of a much simpler expression language, and makes policy enforcement easier. It has cleaner syntax. You write policies that read like natural logic. Not everyone is of that opinion. I do think that a certain amount of it is practicing a little bit and getting used to doing it, because sometimes making something simple seems harder at first until you practice a little bit, and then it's like, oh. And as we've seen people already start to adopt and change, migrate their cluster policies into cell, there have been a handful of people that initially reach out and they're like, why am I doing this? This is so much more difficult. And then within like 3 days, they're like, oh, I get it now.
I can, yes, as someone who I'm wearing the Helm hat right now, as someone who was a core maintainer on Helm for a long time, like, I, for one, am happy I do not have to write basically a programming language in YAML to look for, like, to to basically do queries or expressions or for loops. Like I like having something that is naturally that for things that where obviously that happens, policies obviously being one of those. So I think that I've always found that the debate interesting. We get attached to our tools, but I also know that, like, I don't know about you, but the number of times I've had to like write some weird if statement that's in a string and somehow gets parsed into something, like, I think that like something that actually is a real language, not just a configuration language, is a powerful step forward for a lot of things.
Yes. Also, the when you write the if statement that gets into a very long string and you think you copied everything, but you left off the last two characters, and then you're going, "Why isn't this working? Why isn't it working?" Because you can't actually read it, uh, and then you realize, however long later, oh, I didn't copy the whole thing.
Yep, you missed the two characters that soft wrapped onto the next line, those kind of things.
Those type of things become a lot simpler. I think the complex thing about Cell is because it is much simpler, is that you don't have as many things that can soft wrap. And so it really does make you have to take a moment and define what it is that you actually want the policy to do, right? You can't have an if that goes on forever. You have to be a bit more concise with it. But then once you get that part, it's like, oh, this is a lot easier to do. So that's been my experience so far in the feedback from our community that is in the migration process. Regardless, Cell is here. It's here to stay. You can express complex conditions using familiar operators. It's Kubernetes compatible. Kubernetes, as I mentioned before, has already moved to common expression language for a lot of things. So we are continuing our line to be Kubernetes native, which for a lot of our CNCF end users is very important. And then it's the same language is being used for validating admission policy, for example, in Kubernetes already. So it creates a unified expression ecosystem that starts to happen. And you now have your policies, your validating admission policies defined in the same language as you have your other policies and governance. And that just makes things a lot simpler as you move forward. So that's why we've moved to Cell. This is a super important evolution for our policy engine, but also it's a super important move for our community as well, because there are a lot of things that happen when we move to Cell expression. There are built-in functions that we didn't have before in our policies. There's resource fetching functions that we didn't have before. We also have generator functions. So we'll take a quick look at all of the Cell policies in a moment. We can jump to the next slide and we'll talk about, these are the big advantages that people are already reporting to us. So Cell-powered policies just simply perform better. And a huge part of it is because they are speaking the same language as Kubernetes, right? And that just reduces overhead exponentially. It's a comprehensive benchmark that we have now been able to pull. We're talking about 44% latency reduction, 59% memory savings, 48% CPU efficiency. Those are really big advances in terms of performance on things. So even if you think, I can't believe I have to change this policy, please keep these numbers in mind, because once you do it, you're going to have a lot of advantages on the ops side of things. Saeem, Taylor, any comments on that?
No, I think these number, as you mentioned, it's super important. I think a lot of the companies, I think if they're listening to us or hearing this, I think that's why they see a lot of the people, they talk to me like, why Cell is adopting, why Kubernetes is moving into the Cell-based language, and why the Kyverno community is looking forward to. I think these number tell the story in a very simpler way, and that's tell the why part of it as well. Some people might say like it's a still have a associated learning curve behind adopting and integrating Cell, but I think these number tell us why the investment will pay off in a longer run as well. And I think if some companies building out the platform and they having the same kind of patterns and KPIs of all the time as well. So I think these numbers are important. I think there's a no say no to there's a no reason that we're not moving to the cell. I think it's harder these days to find a caveat of the cell rather than the most beneficial it brings into the table. So I am the more inclined to these numbers as well. I think there are more we can add into this metric list, but I think at least these three alone tells the very truthful story of the on the policy landscape.
Absolutely. And that brings us to this change to common expression language. Now it gives us 5 new policy types. And we'll talk about them briefly. And then I will also, I think I have a couple of slides that show some use cases for them. We have 5 new policy types. They're very exciting, at least to me, because they can do so many things. And every day I discover something new that they can do, or somebody who's using them in a way that I had no idea you could use them. So the first one is straight, direct, validating policy. It's going to check and verify your resources, your configurations. It does that against security and compliance requirements. And all of that happens before deployment. And we've had validating policy in our previous YAML cluster policies as well. But the next one, mutating policy and generating policy, are kind of mind-blowing once you start using them. Mutating policy will automatically modify resources to add missing labels that you forgot to add, or to add security context or compliance metadata during creation. Like, it will mutate different, whatever it is, that are standards that you want to make sure are always there. It can mutate your resources in order to ensure that everything has it, so that you don't have to go through and have somebody doing all of those checks. It's super powerful. It's very cool. It automates so many things. I would also say it allows people to be less detail oriented because they can leave something off. And if you have the policy aligned, it will just create that for you. But also being able to allow, especially when you're talking about smaller teams, that you build it, you run it type of situation where they aren't always as up to speed with Kubernetes, it really is a big advantage for those teams. And then we also have generating policy, which is another very cool thing. It auto creates supporting resources like network policies or resource quotas. Config maps, new resources get deployed. It's a very cool thing. I would say you need to play around with it in a test environment first, because you might have it generating something that you didn't realize you're generating at first. However, because they are common expression language based policies, again, that syntax that you can add in is a lot more concise. They're a lot faster uptake to make sure that it's generating or mutating exactly what you want. So that's very cool. We also have a verify image policy. So there are a lot of tools out there that help you verify images. A lot of people have different ways that they go about doing this. But if you're already creating policies to validate and mutate, generate your resources, why not have your image validation policy in the same place? This is very cool because what it does is going to ensure your container images are digitally signed, that they're actually trusted, they're coming from the library that you have already okayed before any of that is allowed to run in your cluster. And as we all know, it seems like a small step, but it is a step that can be very difficult to control the security of everything that is involved if you don't use the right image, if you don't sign your image, if you're pulling images from someplace that isn't secure. And that happens a lot. So being able to have this kind of policy in your back pocket to ensure that your images are verified accordingly is very powerful for teams, and kind of takes a lot of that weight off of having to worry about stuff. And the final one is a new policy type as well, the cleanup policy. And so many people don't really think about all of the cleanup that actually goes on until you start doing it. Or you're in a massive amount of debt, or you have to reduce your costs somewhere, and you realize that somebody left a random cluster running with a low amount of GPU, and it was just kind of running there forever, and it never got cleaned up. All of those things can totally be taken care of with a cleanup policy because they remove your stale, expired resources automatically. You base a schedule and the conditions that you want, the exact life cycle event that you want, you place that in that policy, and it will run a cleanup in whatever cadence, under whatever condition that you want to keep everything fresh and up to date. So that makes managing all of your resource life cycle and pods and things that are going on a lot easier. So those are our new policy types, quite powerful. We have already seen, well, people initially were like, oh my gosh, I have to learn common expression language. I don't really know if I like this. As soon as they got a mutating policy mutating something, it was the moment of, oh my gosh, I want to write another one. So highly recommend jumping into those and playing around with them a bit, because you imagine it, you can probably write a policy between those 5 that will do it. And that's great.
It's definitely nice. As someone who's had to write a lot of these, it's nice to know that there's other options outside of writing a full like mutating / validating webhook thing, which takes up resources, and you have to run a pod for it or run an extra thing inside of your controller loop or whatever you're doing. And so I think that that's a very useful thing, because if you already have something like Kyverno running, then you can basically, like, obviously you still need it for when it's more complex, or you have to do other things that just might not be covered. But since it's expressions, you can take it and do the validation that you want. Is this set? Does this secret exist? Does this config map exist? Those kind of like checks that you would normally have in a validating or mutating webhook. So I think it's a really nice tool to have in the tool belt.
Yeah, the mutating one. I was like, I don't really get it. And then one of our maintainers was like, here, let me show you. And it was an instantaneous, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, it really does mutate that. They're very cool and super powerful. And we keep having, every time we have a KyvernoCon, we start getting more and more people who start submitting talks about how they change this policy and how the mutating or generating or cleanup policy have saved them in some way, shape, or form. So it's very exciting. It's exciting to be part of a project that people are getting that much value from. I think I've set up 3 different use cases, and Saim was initially going to walk us through these, but that's okay. If he jumps back on, we'll have him jump in. But the first use case I have is a shift left security use case. So we all hear this all the time. Everybody's sick of hearing about shifting their security left. And so a good way to not have to hear about it so much is just by adding a policy. Integrating a Kyverno policy into your CI/CD pipeline. In this case, it will help you enable validate policies against your Kubernetes manifest before deployment, and it will catch your security and compliance issues. So if we look at this code block, let me squint. You can see the GitHub Actions step, I think. Yeah. You can run policies directly in your CI/CD pipeline, and you can see it's defined there. And here's an example of the GitHub Actions. Unsafe manifests are blocked before they're merged. And then developers basically get immediate feedback. So it cuts down the feedback loop as well. And that is probably something I haven't mentioned yet is the way policy as code actually cuts down the feedback loop to your team, so that they know that something's wrong and gives them an automatic alert about that. So because your developers get the automatic feedback in their pull request, they can then fix that issue much quicker and resubmit right away. It's super advantageous for platform teams because then they have fewer surprises later on and fewer manual reviews that they have to do. So that's our first use case. Our second use case, let me see if I can pull up my code block in another window so I can see it better. Policies. So oh, there it is. Multi-tenant cluster management policies. So I think when I first started learning about policies code, there were not that many people in multi-tenant situations. And then a year and a half later, that totally like everybody's in a multi-tenant situation. I don't know anybody that doesn't have multi-tenant clusters going on. So to be fair, this is a very common use case. With a simple generate policy, every new namespace automatically gets a resource quota in this one, and you can see the quota snippet. If you point at the quota in the snippet, every namespace will automatically get a resource quota, and that will basically ensure that there's not a single team that can hog all of your resources. And those are things that do happen, especially as platform teams scale. All of a sudden, one team has all of the resources and nobody else has them. And so something like just setting a simple resource quota for each namespace, make sure that all of your teams are starting off at least on equal footing, and kind of takes away another one of those human-oriented things that platform engineers oftentimes have to deal with, who's hogging all of the resources. And then use case 3 is on automated security scanning use case. We all know that we need to do more security checks. Whether we do them or not is a separate question a lot of times. But if you have a policy set up like the one that you're seeing here, this is one less thing that you have to worry about actually getting the security check run, because this policy will automatically do it. So this is a verify image snippet. So if you look at the verify image part of this policy, we're requiring signed images. So if a developer tries to deploy an unsigned image, it's denied with a very clear error. It gives them context around what needs to be changed. And this is a very quick way to provide a safety net for your supply chain security without having to think about it too much. Combine this with simple cell validations. For example, for just disallowing privileged containers, you now have both the image that you can trust and how they're going to run. And so you start combining those policies to actually create the workflow that you want and tell people exactly how you want that workflow to go. The policies just kind of create the flow and people put it into practice. So a much more straightforward way of managing your actual supply chain security. Super simple. More use cases. Again, Saeem has a lot of context here, but there are so many use cases for policy as code. There's an entire list here, from mandatory labels, naming conventions, resource limits, auth policy protection. We have an authz repo. Please consider participating. It's growing in popularity. In certificate security, service mesh coverage, there's so many different things that you can do with policy as code, as well as we have a lot of people that use it for cost savings and reducing their spend, because they can do simple things like set what used to be, we used to say, you set your CPU limit, but now we're talking about you set your GPU limit with the policy for your AI workload, in order to be able to maintain that cost and spend as well on AI workloads as well as your traditional workloads. So an excessive number of use cases for policy as code. Saeem, now that you're back, do you want to add some context here? Because I know that you also work with a lot of platform teams to help them figure out the best use cases for this.
Yes, absolutely. I think as he told at the beginning of the session, is like, when you need to know, like, we love the cloud native ecosystem in general, because that's where the business is running these days as well. And how much of the cloud native ecosystem I know and how much I'm very wonderfully adopting it, is that's where the policy shines as well. And I think, as you're mentioning, these are the most important use cases of the Kyverno, but on the policy in itself. But the landscape can be heavy. you can enhance the ecosystem according to your need as well. One of the things, as you mentioning to the presentation, what I do in my previous company, whenever the new nodes comes up, there's a problem like, oh, there's a new label that is missing in our when the node is online, and that's where you can actually add policies, make sure the labeling always in place. Otherwise, you have to do a lot of forensic and troubleshooting. It take humongous time from you, and that's where the engineering cycle will be boiled down as well. So I think not much. The list is very small here, but the use cases can be humongous, and I think Kyverno works very well with other cloud native tooling as well. We know Kyverno can work with a Backstack, Backstage, Argo CD, and bunch of other cloud native tooling as well. So it's not the one tool; it's an integration piece that I really love about Kyverno as well. When you build out the policies, you can actually build those policies and make them available into some other dashboards where the monitoring observability tools are actually been running. They can see the responses and get alert back to you as and when the policy is failing, or as and when you thinks the policy is not adhering to the best practices according to the organization. So I love the use cases in general as well, but the integration piece of the Kyverno I really love about as well. It's not just a one tool; it's work with other tool in a perfect way that give us a very full picture of the outcome based platform we lot to talk about in some of our platform engineering domains.
Yeah, I love the backstack. It's a very cool thing, especially for people who are just trying to put together a very thin platform based on CNCF ecosystem. It's Backstage, and Kyverno has Backstage plugins specifically built for it, obviously, but it's Backstage, Argo CD. We also have a version with Flux, if you're a Flux user, and then Crossplane and Kyverno, and it really is just the base of what you need to build your own open source IDP for your team, and it has everything that you need, and Kyverno kind of just sits at the back end of that and make sure that once you have everything set up at admission, everything aligns with whatever your company's requirements are. So the Backstack is a very cool project. We're thrilled to be part of that group. We also collaborate with the Flex community a lot because there are so many advantages to using those tools together, and that probably is one of my favorite things about our tool, is that you get to collaborate across the ecosystem with a lot of other projects that provide huge value for people.
Well, we're getting close to wrapping up. I think there was one other really cool thing you wanted to show off, Courtney, if I remember correctly, about something that Nirmata's been working on, correct?
Yes, absolutely. We do have a couple of things. Common challenges for folks when you're getting started: always start in a test environment with your policies. Make sure that you put them in some sort of audit mode. We do have audit mode, so put them in audit mode before you actually put them in production. That's one thing. Don't overload when you're getting started with your team. Try 3 to 5 policies. Make sure that your team sees the value in them. They will be much more likely to take that on if you do so. And then refresh your rules as often as possible. And then we'll move on. We have purpose-built Kyverno things, so for specific platform teams. Nirmata gave a very cool live stream here on Cloud Native Live about bringing agentic AI to Cloud Native with K-Agent and Kyverno. It's a very, very, very cool live stream. If you haven't seen it, you have the link there. You can check it out. Kyverno MCP server, open source model context protocol that you can use, and it's a very cool project. AI is a thing. This wouldn't be a real live stream if we weren't talking about AI. But on top of our open source MCP server that's going to help you generate policies and do other things, Nirmata, the creators of Kyverno, have also been working on an AI purpose-built AI platform assistant is what they call it. So this is there's a free trial to it. Anyone can try it out. It's straightforward to get started with. It will generate your Kyverno policies for you. So if you are a Kyverno user and you want to move your policies to common expression language very quickly, our AI agent will do it for you almost instantaneously. So you can test your Kyverno policies using just natural language prompts. You can troubleshoot your entire Kyverno setup or different things that have gone wrong that you don't understand what's going on. It can also recommend policies to you. So look at what's there and tell you what's missing. Scan for your compliance needs and remediate violations. You can get started with a free trial of this tool at nirmata.com. It will take you directly there. You can see NCTL AI is what the tool is called. And all of this goes through just your normal CLI with normal language prompt. And I think I added a GIF to the slides that show a very quick setup of this. This is also on the website, but you install, you open up your CLI, and you can just start asking it questions or copy and paste in a cluster policy and say, troubleshoot this policy for me, or turn it into common expression language. Tell me what I'm missing. If something's not working, put in the actual logs and it will troubleshoot it for you. There are 1,000,001 skills built on the backside of this. And the reason I bring this up is because there are so many Kyverno users out there and platform teams. And right now, a lot of times they're trying to better policies across the board and building everything in-house. And building things is what engineers do. We all love to build stuff, but there's a certain amount of error that happens. And this is just it's a purpose-built for Kyverno, gives you fantastic output, helps you troubleshoot things very quickly in your CLI. And it's free. It's got a free trial that anyone can try. If you give feedback, I think it continues to be free for as long as you're giving feedback to the tool. So give it a go. Give us some feedback. Jump into community spaces. We are on CNCF Slack, Kubernetes Slack. We also, I think, somewhere out there have a Kyverno Discord server. I'm on way too many Slacks. So if you put my name in, I'll probably come up. You can ask anything you'd like about it. If you don't know how to get started or just want to extend your free trial on NCTL AI for your Kyverno installation, tell me that too, and I'll get you what you need.
Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thanks, everyone, for attending today. If you're interested in joining the Kyverno community, you can reach out in any of those places Courtney talked about. Thanks to Saeem and Courtney for their presentation today and for letting us know about all these really interesting things around policies, Cell, AI. It's really awesome to see. So hopefully you all enjoyed it, and we'll look forward to seeing you all at our next Cloud Native Live.